Plug that up. Thank you, She's here. She's been outside. She's been on a trip with Gotcha. What's the mystery of training? Good. Well, she got her one Terry's going to go get another job so she can stop. We're not even Yes. We're still having to keep moving this extension. Yeah. How's it going? Yeah. We got a win Friday. Y'all are doing this. That's the part I worry about. That's my thing.
Hey, little bit. Hey, little bit. Hey, little bit. How you doing?
Jim. It's not on.
Good morning, church. I'm actually here before a change. We're glad you're here this morning. We're in for a treat today, or probably more of an eye-opener. And we're very blessed that Stephan Darby is with us. Now, Stephan's claim to fame, besides his wife Beth, is that he is the grandson of Ross and Mary Ruth Darby. Now, some of you older people remember Ross and Mary Ruth. Probably Ross more so than anybody, because he was a character, and we still miss Ross and Mary Ruth. Very, very important part of the Petersville history. They were here when it first began. So Stephan is their grandson, but Stephan is the founder and president of Advanced Information Technologies in town. So he knows his computer business inside out. And he's been in the technology field for over 25 years, so he's seen a whole lot of advancements and a whole lot of scary stuff come along in that time as well. Stephan is one of the elders at Jackson Heights, and has been serving there for several years. And he's gone around to various congregations presenting what he's going to present to us today. As I mentioned, his wife, Beth, is with us this morning. She's a real estate agent here in town. Their daughter, Haley, is also with us, along with Kyle, her husband, and their baby. And he has another son, Nicholas Darby, and daughter-in-law, Adrian Darby. And they're in Birmingham, or Centerville, Birmingham area. And his granddaughter, Darby. Hey, that's a good name. Yeah. Darby is with us as well this morning. We're very thankful that you're here this morning. He is going to be sharing some eye-opening information with us this morning, things that are scary, but also things that are preventable. And I'm looking forward to that. Let's get started with a prayer this morning. Our Heavenly Father, we love you. We thank you so much for being our God and for knowing everything about us that you do. Dear God, there's so many things on our hearts this morning. Each one of us brings something in this morning that's maybe weighing on us. We just pray that you would look down and bless us. You know our needs. We just pray that we'll trust you to take care of it. We thank you for Stephan being with us this morning. We pray that you'll bless him as he presents these lessons for us. And may we have open ears, open eyes, and open hearts as we listen to them this morning. We pray that you would be with the people that are being affected by the Hurricane Florence. Bless them. We know that we even have some here this morning that have come this direction to avoid the hurricane. We just pray that you'll bless each family or each person affected by the hurricane. We know that there was a lady killed last night on Florence Boulevard. We pray that you would bless her family this morning as well. Just look down on us, guide us in our worship today. May it all be to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Stefan.
Buttons on, can y'all, okay, here we go. So y'all can hear me now. I appreciate your friendliness. A number of you have come up and introduced yourself. You know, maybe it's a little bit easier to talk to a group of strangers. I don't know. So many of you know me, and Gary even started out talking about my grandparents, and they were here for a number of years. But I know a lot of you know me, and it's great to be here at Petersville. I really appreciate the invitation. Hopefully I'll have something to talk to you about today or tonight that will be of interest to you. My goal is to change lives. So I hope that I say something in one of these sessions, whether it's in class this morning or in our lesson tonight, that will have an impact on your life. So I really appreciate that opportunity. I'll get my clicker in sync here. So I've been in the technology business for over 35 years. The company that I have, we've been in business 25 years, but over 35 years I have been in the technology business. So I have seen a little bit of everything. And if somebody had to ask me what has had the biggest impact on people related to technology, it would have to be the internet. When the internet came along, it had more of an impact on people's lives and just what we do from day to day than anything that I have ever seen. There's a lot of good about the internet. We have at our fingertips, we have a quick way to get to information, lots of resources, whereas before we might have had a book or go to a library or find an expert on a topic. Now it's at our fingertips, so it's real easy to get to. It allows us to keep in touch with others. It allows us to find others with the same interest that we have. But I'm not here to talk about the good stuff this morning. I'm here to talk to you about the bad side of the internet. When we look at this topic of pornography, anybody that has been on the internet for any time has been exposed to pornography. Maybe it was unintentional. Maybe you came across a pornographic site or photo or message and you did not intend to. Maybe you were searching for something else. Statistics show us that 79% of the time it happens within the home. 40% of the time it happens with an innocent search. So maybe you were exposed to it and you didn't mean to be. You were not looking for it. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was something that you did yourself where you initiated the search. Maybe you were at home, or maybe you were at a friend's house. And it's great to see all these young people here, because this is really a message not only for the adults in this room, but for you young people, because I'm convinced that on this topic of pornography, we really don't realize the seriousness of it. We really don't realize the damage, and we don't realize what kind of temptation it is. So it's great to have these young people here. Hopefully, I'll say something that will influence y'all's lives, because this is a huge problem when it comes to our youth and our schools, all the way back to middle school. You'll see statistics that I show you this morning, and then it's a problem that continues through college. This topic, or this statement here by the U.S. Department of Justice, I think is really interesting, especially in light of when you think about our government today, how liberal it is, how accepting it is of so many things, yet the Department of Justice issued this statement: never before in the history of telecommunications media in the United States has so much indecent and obscene material been so easily accessible by so many minors in so many American homes with so few restrictions. There's a lot of key words in this statement here. First of all, indecent and obscene. Secondly, how easy it is to access it, and with so few restrictions. That's a strong statement when you think about it coming from our government. Now, I'm going to run through some statistics with you. I'm not trying to bore you with statistics, but my goal is to try to inform you of what we're faced with today within our society, within our world, specifically here in North Alabama. The majority of boys, 9 out of 10, have been exposed to porn before the age of 18. These are statistics that you can easily find for yourself, and they are startling. Average first exposure, 11 years old. When I first started speaking about this topic, it was 12. So it has gone down a year from age 12 to 11. Clicker's not working here. There we go. In 2012, 44% of teens surveyed admitted they had looked at something online of which their parents would not approve. Of these, 81% said it happened at home, 48% said it happened when their parents were not at home. I want you to file this statistic away because if we have time later in this class this morning, we're going to talk about protecting our homes. Let's talk about desensitization. That's a word that's common to all of us. It's probably not a word that we use a whole lot. The Barna Group, they interviewed 3,000 people in 2016, 2 years ago. They said that 90% of teens, 96% of young adults are either encouraging, accepting, or neutral when it comes to talking about pornography with their friends. Just keep clicking or... Oh, okay. Okay. So when we talk about desensitization, when we talk about accepting, it's because of oversaturation. It's because of what we are confronted with just on a regular basis. And I'm not going to keep looking around. If y'all will tell me when the screen comes back up, and I'll try to catch up with what we're talking about. So within our society, when we talk about desensitization, it's just because of all the things that we are bombarded with on a daily basis. And we're hit with it so much, it becomes so common to us that we don't even think about it anymore. Something else that I've got up on the screen, 55% of adults 25 and older believe porn is wrong. That's just a little over half. Here we go. That's just a little over half people believe that it's wrong. And this third thing that I'm going to show you here in this survey, more teens and young adults thought that recycling or not recycling was worse than pornography. So when we get desensitized, when we get oversaturated with something, it rearranges our priorities. It rearranges what we think is bad and what we think is good. And to think that we're now to the point to where so many people think that not recycling is worse than an addiction of pornography. Other statistics here, 4.2 million pornographic websites are out there. The majority of them come from the United States too, when you look at deeper into that statistic. 12% of total websites can be ranked or rated as a pornographic website. Daily search engine requests, 68 million, 25% request. Of all requests in search engines, when you go to Google or Bing or other things that you may use, 25% of those are looking for adult material. So that tells you how people are spending time on the internet. And 2.5 billion emails, that's 104 million per hour, which that statistic does not surprise me at all. In our corporate filtering that we do for our customers, we usually filter out 35 to 50% of emails as garbage. And a lot of those fall within this category here as far as pornography. Every second, 28,258 users are watching pornography on the internet. $3,075 a second is being spent on pornography. If you do the math, that's $266 million a day, and that does not even include the free pornography that's out there. In fact, that's a huge concern when you look into the pornography industry because they say they're losing revenue because of all the free stuff that's out there. So the problem of it is even a lot bigger than what is quantified here. on this screen. Every second, 372 people are typing the word adult into those search engines that we talked about a while ago. 40 million people, American people, regularly visit porn sites. So pornography has always been around. It's nothing new. When I was growing up like these young people, pornography was around, so what's the difference? When you think about before it was the public, access to pornography was much more difficult. There was an element of shame involved. It can only be bought when you went somewhere. So what did you have to do before? You had to get in your car, you had to go somewhere, and you had to buy it. Whether you were going to a convenience store or an adult bookstore, you see these signs on the interstates and stuff when you're driving, all these exits, all these places. You had to go. What was the risk there? You were risking being seen. Because if you go out and you go to a store and you pick up something, or your car's sitting in front of an adult bookstore and somebody drives by and they say, that's so-and-so's car. So people knew what we were doing. It was easy. It was a no-brainer. If you're sitting there, if you're picking up something in a store and somebody sees you, it left no question. So people knew there was no such thing as being anonymous. So what has changed? Now it's private. We have something that we can do on multiple devices. We can access it via our computers, use a tablet like I've got here, your smartphones, and we can do it in the privacy of our home. And for some reason, we think it's okay. Or for some reason, we think that nobody can see us, that nobody knows that we're involved in this sin because it's within our homes. We can sit in the comfort and the privacy of our home. I think that that's the main reason why this has become so much of an issue. There are people that would not have risked going out to a bookstore or going out to a convenience store and picking up a magazine or something that will access pornography at home. So that addiction has grown much more because of that. So it makes us feel anonymous. It makes us feel like nobody can see us. So it kind of does away with the guilt thing, doesn't it? We don't think that we're guilty of anything, that we're just doing something within the privacy of our home that nobody can see. And it kind of takes away the element of shame and guilt. I showed this picture a couple of years ago when I was speaking at Heritage. And I opened it up and I said, if I told you all you needed to install one of these in your home, what would you be thinking? Let's just go ahead and let's put a bar in. They're easy to build. I'm sure there's lots of contractors in this area that would be more than willing to put this in your home. So why don't we do it? I can imagine the reaction if you all were talking that I would be getting from you right now. You would be saying, Gary, why in the world have you brought this guy here? He's telling us that we need to put a bar in our home. And the reasons that you would give me is you would say, look at all the reasons why I don't want a bar in my home. First of all, it could addict me to alcohol. It could be a lifelong addiction because I'm making it available to whoever's in my home, my children, my grandchildren, my guests, my family. You would say it could be physically damaging. Not only from a physical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, from a lifelong standpoint. The reasons would continue. You would say, you're about to introduce people in my family to a lifelong addiction, to something that they're going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives. It would cause long-term harm to my family. It would have spiritual consequences. So all of these reasons that you would give me as to why you don't want a bar in your home, and I understand that. But now I want to ask you, if I ask for a show of hands as to how many people have internet in your home, it's probably going to be just about all of you. Some form or fashion by some provider or whatever. And then I ask you, do you have wireless internet in your home? Because that means when you have guests, when your children are at home, young people, when you have your friends over and they connect their phones up to your Wi-Fi at your house, Just about everybody has that. And then I'm going to ask you a really, really serious question. And that is the internet at your house, is it unfiltered and is it unmonitored? Because if it is, you have something at your home that's probably worse than an open bar. Let's stop and think about that for a second. You've just told me why you would not have a bar in your house. But yet, if you have internet access at your house and it's not filtered and it's not being monitored, what are you allowing people access to? Bar, you're allowing them access to alcohol. What we're talking about here this morning, the whole subject of pornography, if your internet access at home is unrestrained, then you're giving your family, you're giving yourself, you're giving your guest access to what we're talking about this morning. And that's the temptation of pornography. So what's the difference? What's the difference between having one addiction, one possible addiction in your home, such as alcohol or drugs, versus another addiction? An addiction is an addiction. A sin is a sin. A temptation is a temptation. If you don't listen to me for the rest of the day, I hope that this makes an impression on you. I hope that you'll go home, that if this is something you don't have in place, that it's something you will put in place, that you'll understand the seriousness of it. Reality facts about pornography. Addictions never improve by themselves. And pornography is no exception to this. You won't think of anybody who has an addiction that just on its own it gets better, that it lessens in intensity. That's because we as individuals, we have to be wowed. And what wows us today, what captures our interest today, what we're interested in won't last for long. So things have to get worse, and that's why addictions get worse, and that's why we have to be fed more from a quantity standpoint, more from a content standpoint, because we get bored as individuals. Pornography is no different than any other addiction. Where it starts is not where it ends on its own. The same type, or the type, the frequency, the amount never stays the same. The addiction moves from one device to another, and you're going to see some statistics that I'm going to show you about smartphones. It may start out with a computer at our home, and then it may move to our smartphone or a tablet. It may move to our work. I can't tell you how many people, in my experience in the commercial world, have lost their jobs because of addictions to pornography. Even if they found a way around the filters that were in place at work, they lost their job, and it's no different from other addictions. You may have people that lose their jobs because of other bad habits. It may cause you to lose your job here. Maybe even at work, that it moves. More statistics there. 2012, 24% of smartphone owners admit to having this material on their smartphones, on their mobile devices. 43%. When it comes to smartphones, industry executives are really excited. They say that's the future. They are looking to your smartphone as the primary vehicle for them to give pornography to you. So it's going to become even more important in the future than what your computers are at home and so on. More people are watching porn on smartphones than ever. That came from last year from an organization called Pornhub. Brain addictions. We talk about alcohol. We talk about drugs. If you have an addiction to a substance, you can seek help for that. You can go to a center, and your body may be addicted to that drug or to that alcohol, and they can take that away from your body. Some of you may have had experiences like that, to where you went somewhere. They take that away from your body, and after a while, your body can get used to being without it. There still may be that urge there, but your body can survive, it can function without it. Pornography is completely different. And the reason why it's different is pornography etches in your brain. And there is nothing that you can do, there's no center that you can go to that's going to erase your brain. So once something is up there in our brains, it's something that we think about. You hear the term flashbacks. And young people, this is why this is so important and why this may even be more dangerous than anything else, is because it can lead to a lifelong struggle for you that you can have, because it gets stored away up there in our memory and in our brains. And we may see things, we may hear things that makes us recall those things, makes us think about things that we've seen before. And our church families are not exempt. Christian is used loosely here, but there's some pretty startling statistics out there. Proven Men Ministries in 2014 did a survey. 77% of men that call themselves Christians access pornography monthly, 36% daily, 32% admit to being addicted. So we are not just talking about a problem within our world. I have had numerous people come to me within the church to talk about this issue. I've had ministers and elders and deacons, because none of us are perfect. We are all susceptible to sin, and we're going to talk about temptation this morning. None of us are above sin, temptation. None of us are above addiction, not even within the church. So not only is this an issue that I'm talking to you about this morning out in the world, it's an issue within the church. And don't we a lot of times just think, oh, that doesn't apply to us? Because I'm a member of the church. So I don't even have to worry about this stuff. But it's even within the church. 47% of Christian families report pornography as the biggest problem in their family. So many marriages have been split up because of this problem. So many issues within the home, even if marriages stay together, so many issues that it can cause. We don't hear enough about it from the pulpit. We don't hear enough about it in classes. You know, we kind of have our big topics that we talk about all the time, especially along the lines of temptation. But this is not one that we hear about. It needs to be in our classrooms more. It needs to be talked about from our pulpits more, because this is a huge issue. So parents, I want you to think about your responsibilities. You know, we talk about that a lot. We talk about parental responsibilities and these children that we have at home or these grandchildren. What are our responsibilities to them? I want you to think about that now in light of what we've talked about, some of these things that we've looked at this morning as far as pornography. For a number of years now, we've had computers at home. If I ask you who set up your internet access at home, probably most of you are not going to be technically savvy enough to do that. You're going to say, well, when Comcast came out and installed it, they set it up. Or when AT&T came out and installed it, or Direct or Dish, or whomever you have your Verizon, whoever you have your internet through, you're going to say, well, that's who installed it. So you don't have a lot of knowledge as to what was set up. And then came along, smartphones. Here. I think it's taking a while for the computer. There we go. Smartphones and tablets. So we thought that we just had to deal with computers in our homes, and then we had these mobile devices that came along. And then we had home networks. You've now got gaming consoles and other things that we call in the business, we call them the Internet of Things. Devices that are connected all over that have access to the internet. So now, not only can you access pornography from a computer or a mobile device, you may be able to get to it from a gaming device. So we have home networks now. that have expanded this. So as you think about everything in your house that is connected to the internet, I'll go back to that question that I asked you earlier. Are they protected? Are they filtered? Are they monitored? And if not, who has access to those devices? Because again, parents, the home is our responsibility. Children are our responsibility. Grandchildren are part of our responsibility. So are you giving somebody access to something in your home that could be damaging to them? Now, if we think about the worldview as far as responsibilities, we certainly can't rely on that. In fact, all this communication freedom, constitutional rights, we're not supposed to invade anybody's privacy. You may have even run into that as a parent, that once your children get so old, you can't get information because of all these new laws and stuff that we have in place now. I have even known of individuals or because of certain things having to go to Verizon or AT&T with a subpoena to get information because our laws and our rules in this country have gotten so ridiculous as far as trying to see, especially in cases of litigation where there may have been something on a computer or some activity that's been done. There are organizations that do forensic services, and that's all that they do. But our laws in this country have gotten ridiculous from that standpoint. So you cannot rely upon these companies that provide internet access to you, be it AT&T or Comcast or Dish or Direct or Verizon. You can't rely on them to do this for you, parents. It's something that you have to do on your own. So young people, this is a statistic that I want you to see too. 71% of teens, this came out with a group called Covenant Eyes. You can go to their website, True Research. 71% of teens that were interviewed said that they had done something to hide from their parents. What we're talking about this morning, and there's a lot of different things that are talked about there. Clearing your browser history, minimizing a browser when in view, deleting inappropriate videos, lying, using a phone instead of a computer, blocking your parents, disabling parental controls, and the list goes on and on. Young people, if God had meant for you to not have parents that were concerned about you and that wanted to put boundaries around your life, then He would have created you like an animal, where an animal is born and then it's just left to fend on its own, fend for itself. That's what you see throughout the animal kingdom. But God didn't create us that way. He created us so that you all have parents. And He placed the responsibility on parents to take care of you until you get to an adult age where you can take care of yourself. And that includes decisions. So when you try to circumvent what your parents have put out there for you as far as boundaries, things that they have put out there because they love you and because they want what is the very best for you, you're only damaging yourself and you're only impacting your future. So that's something to think about. Don't try to outsmart your parents when they're trying to protect you. Strong relationship. This is spoken of in so many different places. You know, we can have all of the filtering things in place. We can have monitoring in place, but if we don't communicate within our families, if we don't talk about these problems, your children are going to talk about them at some point with somebody. So it's important, young people, it's important. If this isn't being discussed in your families, bring it up, talk about it. These are all topics. Any issue within society, any issue that's prevalent with us today, we need to be talking about it in our homes. We need to be talking about what we do to guard our souls, what we do to keep ourselves from it. Not only as adults, but as children, as young people. Because if we don't acknowledge, if we don't understand the magnitude of why this is wrong, what it can do to us, and where it can lead to, then we're setting ourselves up for a lot of damage and a lot of failure in the future. So to talk about the addictiveness, we've already talked about that this morning. That's important for us to consider. And we all need to understand that pornography is an addiction just like a drug, whether it's alcohol or a substance, whatever. Okay, I'm going to spend, I think we've got about 10 minutes or so left. I'm going to spend the last 10 minutes of my time talking about what I kind of mentioned earlier, and that is, what do you do at home? Young people, you may have to take this initiative yourself if your parents are not going to, because God places the responsibility on us to guard our soul. And how do we do that? We put safeguards in place. Technical knowledge, that may be a big thing. I can look at these young people. You all grew up with technology. My generation didn't. I won't date myself, but I can remember the first computer. When I first saw the first computer, I can remember when I was in school how we did programming. My background is in software development. Those are things you wouldn't even if I showed you some of those things that we used, you wouldn't even recognize them. But you all grew up with technology. You're comfortable with it. You're familiar with it. You know it a lot better than your parents, because it's just been part of your life. You just think you were born with it because it has always been there for you. And parents, we know that it's not that way with us. So you have to consider that when we talk about the generation gap. I have some customers that are schools. I feel sorry for them. They got the toughest job of all. The IT administrators of schools, they got a lot harder job than the IT administrators in the commercial world out there, because kids are so smart. They're always fighting. How are children going to get around what we put in place to keep them from going places they shouldn't? It is a continuous struggle for these colleges and for these schools that are there because of that generation gap, because of the knowledge that people have. First thing that I'm going to show you that you need at home, you need good antivirus. There's some freebies out there. I like paid versions. I just think they work a whole lot better. Kaspersky's my favorite. Yes, it's a Russian company. Yes, it's got negative publicity, but it's a wonderful product. There's also Norton. There's also McAfee. The reason why I bring those up, those will filter out a lot, especially if you have it tied in to filter your email. A lot of those will filter out objectionable content. So that's the first and foremost thing you need to do. You need to have that on your computers at home. The second thing is filtering and blocking. And when you see that, they normally break them down into categories. They'll say, these are the categories that you can filter internet access for. And one of those categories will be pornography, adult, mature content. You kind of see a whole list of things there that they call adult and mature content, but it can also be other things too. So those are things that you have control over as an individual when you install these on your computers, divided into categories. Some of the terms that you'll hear: false positive. This is not a perfect technology. If you set up filtering within your home, you're going to get things blocked that shouldn't be blocked. Okay? You're going to get things that pass through that should have been blocked. Those are false positives. A whitelist is something that you allow to go through. When Haley is here this morning, my daughter, when Nicholas and Haley were growing up, we had filtering at home. And yes, there were legitimate sites that got blocked. And the rule was, if you are trying to go to a site and you get blocked, you come to Dad. And you explain why you need to go to the site. And then if it was not a site with objectionable content, a site that they needed to get to, I would unblock that site for them. I'm a parent. I was a parent then. And your parents, we control other things that our children do, so we have to control this as well. A blacklist is something that you don't want somebody to get to, that you can actually do on your own. Recording, auditing, and key logging. This is the monitoring aspect of technology. So not only is it important to filter technology, but we need to be monitoring what goes on within our homes. We monitor other things, don't we? We try to know when our kids leave the house or where they are at any time of the day or night. We try to know that So why shouldn't we know where they are online? To review what sites they visit, what are they searching for. The tools that I'm going to show you this morning do all of that. What messages are they sending? And how much time are they spending online on various sites? Are they accessing the internet or using their smartphone at times that they should not? These are all questions that we have to ask as parents. And young people, I want to talk to you again, because I'm not just picking on you. I'm not throwing these things up and saying, oh no, this is what mom and dad have to do. You ought to be concerned about this. Because if you're of an accountable age, God is looking to you to safeguard your soul just like he's looking to every adult in this auditorium. So not only should it be a priority with your parents, you in your Christian walk, you in your Christian life, it should be a priority to you as well. And your youth ministers, y'all need to be talking about this thing. These are the two packages that I think are the best at what I'm talking about. Net Nanny is one. I've got 5 minutes, right, Gary? Net Nanny is probably one of the oldest packages out there. It's a good package. In fact, when people come to me with a concern or with an acknowledged addiction to pornography, this is the first thing I tell them: put this on your computer and let somebody at your house password protect it so that you can't get to it. You can't get to the administration of it to control what sites you can go to. Web Watcher is another good one. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but it has a lot of good reviews. But Net Nanny, I know, is a very good package. Now let's talk about home networks. You can put it on every machine at home, but you may have other devices. If you've got a lot of devices, maybe you're a tech-savvy home and you've got all these devices, then you need to look for a network solution. You need to look for a firewall. There's firewalls. There's other hardware devices. If you're in that category and you want to talk to me offline about that, I'll be happy to give you my recommendations there. But a lot of homes are not that mature enough from a technology standpoint. And then that administrative password that I talked about earlier, you want to make sure that, especially if you're the one with a problem, that you don't know what that is, so that it won't allow you to circumvent it. These packages are very tight. When you install Net Nanny, for example, you cannot circumvent that system if you don't have that password. It's very hardened, and it doesn't even show up on the computer as a process that's running. If you're unsure about this, get a trial version, get a demo of it. Put it on your computer at home and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll see how it prevents you from doing certain things. Go through each setting, decide what you want to keep as the default or what you want to change. Any good package will email you. I think Net Nanny does on a daily basis. It will also email you when there are exceptions, like if you have somebody within your house that's trying to do things that they shouldn't, it will notify you as the administrator of that package. So it's going to keep you informed. Possible implementation problems, it may stop working, it may block other things. Those are just things, like I said, this is not a perfect technology that we're talking about here. Maybe things that you have to contend with, and then that monitoring that we talked about earlier, that is just as important. You have to teach about the dangers of technology, what it can lead to. We teach our children about the dangers of other things, and we have to give examples. I teach a class at Jackson Heights of 20 and 30-year-olds, and that's what we talk about so many times is, and most of those members of that class, they've got real small children, but we say there's one thing you can teach your children. You can show them things in a book. They can have a great youth minister. They can hear great lessons from the pulpit, but if you don't give them real-life examples, what does it really mean? There's just something about a real-life example. And I think God puts opportunities in front of us every day, examples of other people that we can talk about with our children, we can talk about in our youth groups. Because it means a whole lot to us when we can see somebody that's in a situation. This is what I'm going to close with because I've talked a lot about children and protecting children. Adults, you need to be protecting yourselves. These safeguards that we've talked about this morning, they're not just for children. We have a responsibility to guard our soul as members of the church. So we have to put these things in place as well. I'm going to stop there. If you have any specific questions, you can see me after the service this morning. I really appreciate your attention this morning. Hopefully I've given you some information that will be helpful. And the guys that do this AV, they've got my slide deck if you all want copies of it.